Hello and welcome to my first Blu-ray review on this channel. This is a review of one of my top 25 favorite films of all time. This is a 2013 Criterion Collection release, and behind me I've got my Criterions, or most of my Criterions. So I'll pull it off the shelf. And this 1969 film happens to be Medium Cool. It's a film directed by Haskell Wexler and starring Robert Forster and Verna. This is not only one of my top 25 favorite films of all time, this is also one of my favorite Criterion Collection releases on Blu-ray. Now, for the benefit of those of you who may not know much about the Criterion Collection, maybe you've never heard of Criterion and you're wondering, what is the Criterion Collection? Check this out. Okay, so the Criterion Collection is a boutique Blu-ray distributor. They're out of New York City, and they specialize in releasing important classic and contemporary films in the best quality for home video, usually along with some really good supplements that add context to the film that you're watching or that you just watched. So they'll produce, in many cases, they'll produce visual essays or have interviews with some of the major players that were part of the production of the film. They'll have film critics and folks come on and talk about the movie and give you some different context and perspective of the film. They'll put it in a historical context or talk about it in the context of cinema as a whole, and just give you a flavor of why this film is part of the Criterion Collection and why it's considered to be important as a classic film or a more recent film. So it's sort of like going to film school in a box. Okay, so the setting of Medium Cool is the summer of 1968 in Chicago during the time of the Democratic National Convention. And the whole world is watching. The whole world is watching. It's part of the theme of this movie, seeing through the lens of a camera, if you would, into the real world events that are going on. 1968 was such an explosive time in American history because you had so many things converging at once. The civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, protesting the Vietnam War, all of this was happening during a hotly contested election year, also in the backdrop of the recent assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy. So 1968 was an incredibly hot, boiling period in America, and Medium Cool encapsulates the zeitgeist at this critical moment in American history. So Robert Forster plays John Casellas. He's a TV cameraman, and he is accompanied by his sound man, Gus. They do what it takes to get the story. Going all over town, covering news events all over the city. So they're covering riots, they're covering the National Guard preparing for the convention coming up, African-American protesters during the civil rights movement, all sorts of stories all over town. The movie opens up with them covering the scene of an accident and showing them getting footage of the accident on the scene. The ironic thing is they do whatever it takes to get the story, even if it means ignoring human needs. So there's a woman at the scene who's literally dying and in need of medical help. John and Gus are just getting the sound, getting the pictures. They're doing everything to get that footage. It's not until they have finished their work that they even bother to think about, oh, maybe we should call an ambulance, as they're getting ready to leave. So this movie provides a really powerful commentary into the role of the news media in our society, as well as its portrayal of the civil rights movement, race relations, as well as the anti-war protests. Verna plays Eileen, who's a single mom who John Casellas befriends through a set of circumstances. He befriends Eileen and her young son. You get to see through their eyes a glimpse into all of these issues and how they're responding to the civil rights movement, the anti-war protests, the events leading up to the Democratic National Convention, and how their lives get intertwined into all of that. What makes Medium Cool so incredible in my mind is how it takes the real events and it combines them with the lives of these fictional characters, John and Eileen and her son, Harold. And you see them navigating the world. You get to see them in their conversations with people and how they're responding to the events of the day. Real events and these fictional characters blended together in a way that you can hardly tell where one begins and one ends. It's really incredible. I think it's, in my opinion, one of the great examples of cinema verite style filmmaking that I've ever seen. And it's why it's one of my top 25 favorite films of all time and one of my top Criterion Collection editions. So this movie covers three key themes. It covers the civil rights movement and race relations at that time, which is actually a mirror into the things that we're seeing in today's world. It covers the anti-war movement and the heavy protests that were going on during that time of the Vietnam War and the wars in Southeast Asia. And it also covers the themes around the role of the news media in our society. And at what point should journalism stop and human intervention take place? So those are the three big themes around Medium Cool. And part of what makes this film, which came out in 1969, so incredible, because the events that it was covering is very close to the time that it actually came out. So you're actually seeing real footage from those events. So this release by the Criterion Collection is absolutely phenomenal. This release on Blu-ray is such a fantastic presentation. This is a 4K digital restoration and it looks amazing on Blu-ray. I'm not going to go into all the technical specs around that, but it is a 4K digital restoration. There's tons of special features on here. I always love it when there's a commentary on a release. This one has two commentaries. One of them is a commentary that Haskell Wexler is on. And there's an interview with Haskell Wexler, a couple of documentaries on here. There's also a great documentary on here called Sooner or Later, which tells you the story of Harold Blankenship, who played the little boy in the film. For many years, his whereabouts were unknown. After this movie was shot, this little boy was sent back to his home, and for many years, no one knew what became of him until later. And they tracked him down, and this is a documentary that covers his life since the movie. So what can I say? This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Great collection of supplemental features. Just overall a fantastic package by Criterion for this amazing film. The music of this movie, Medium Cool, is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing, led by the song Emotions, which runs through most of the runtime of this movie. The soundtrack of this movie literally makes you feel like you are in 1968, seeing these events as they're unfolding. It is absolutely incredible. So I would say the music alone is worth the price of admission for this movie. So there you have it. That's my review of Medium Cool. Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below what you think about the film, what you think about this review. Let me know what you think about other films that are in the Criterion Collection. What are your favorites? Let me know what you want to see reviews of in the future. I plan to do other reviews similar to this. This is my first one, so it'll probably be my worst. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.